Hello, everyone. Michael E. Parker here for another episode here on YouTube. And I just want you to think for a minute of times that you know yourself, that you go back and forth trying to figure out what is the best decision to make about whatever that thing is. And we've all been guilty of it when, we just can't find that strength to make a decision. We just can't have enough courage, enough something on the inside that is willing to make that decision and to stand on it. Well, I want you all to really take note of the things we're going to talk about today, because we're talking about how we can struggle from being indecisive and what that really means to be just too indecisive, not willing, basically, to make a decision, not willing to actually have the strength to be okay with the consequence of whatever may come. Now, I know some of you that are watching this have been in this situation before. You've found yourself where you're confronted with something that you have to decide on, and you just can't get to the point where you're comfortable making that decision. Some people, it's taken them, minutes when it should have taken seconds. Sometimes it's taken hours when it should have taken minutes. Sometimes it took days when it should have taken, or I should say months when it should have taken days. All of these things we find ourselves wrapped up in because we're in this mental struggle that I want to talk to you about today. Now, I want you to keep something in mind. Making a decision is a serious thing. It's not just a small thing. A lot of times we talk about the importance of what a decision really means. Now, let me go to my whiteboard just for a minute before I explain a few things to you. Now, I want you to understand something about, we've talked about this, and if you've been with me sometime, you've heard me talk about how decision means that there is something I have to cut off, right? So I'm really cutting something off. I am saying I am not going to do this so I can do that, right? So this is the reason a decision is such a serious thing. It's the reason we don't take it lightly. It's the reason we have hesitation, because we know it's that decision part of decision. So you're putting all your eggs in, you're putting all of your marbles in. You're saying, this is what I'm going to do. This is the decision that I'm making. And because of that, we are often, confronted with all kinds of things that we go through because we know that decision is real. It is something that we can't necessarily have back. So that part of making a decision, I want you to consider this is a big part of why we may struggle. Now, keep in mind, have you ever felt stuck? Just feel stuck. You feel like, I just can't make a decision, right? We're often afraid of the unknown, right? So these things that, we have that feeling of feeling stuck. We're concerned about the unknown, right? We don't know what will be the consequence of the decision. So we just choose to do nothing, right? So the fact that, whenever you have to make a decision, there's an opportunity to be wrong, right? Opportunity to be wrong. This is another thing that really paralyzes us, right? So again, we end up doing nothing. Another thing we like to do is we like to transfer ownership. In other words, I should own making this decision, but I look for someone else. Is there anyone else that I can get to own this responsibility? Try to get someone else to make that decision for you. You start trying to, ask someone else to, what would you do if you was in this situation? Well, and there's nothing wrong with advice. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with coaches and mentorship. There's nothing wrong with it, the people in our life that we trust, that we can talk to. I advise that when you need to. But when you do that, when it's not necessary, because you're indecisive, that is what we're talking about right now. We don't want to do that when we know that is not necessary. You are just making an excuse. You are just buying time. You are just trying to get away from your responsibility of making a decision that you know in your heart needs to be made. And this is what we're talking about today. This is what we're trying to get clarity on today. This is what we want to improve today. So I want you all to consider. Now, I see some of you that are coming in live, so I want to thank you, all of you that are here live. I see Betty and Bella and Jacqueline and Stephen, Charmaine. So some of you that are coming in, I see you, so feel free to chat away as we're talking here. Make sure you like, you comment, you subscribe, and you share, because we want people to hear what we're talking about today, because this is something that everyone is bothered by. Now, did you know, real quick back to my whiteboard, did you know that a big part of our inability to make decisions also has to do with our insecurities? So we've got a lot of insecurities where we're insecure about, if I make this decision, what's going to be the outcome and how will I be viewed after that? See, when I'm insecure, I always need someone to validate me. I need someone to, give me that, sense of feeling that I did the right thing, that I am, someone of worth, right? I need someone else to make me feel that I have worth. And if I don't have enough self-worth, then when it's time to make a decision, I'm afraid to make that decision because I don't feel I am worth the ability to make that decision. I don't feel I have what it takes to make that decision. I am insecure about my ability, right, to make a decision that makes sense. So see, this is something that we're insecure about. So we want to increase our value, right? The more we increase our worth and our value, the more comfortable we'll be in making decisions, because we know that we know about that thing, because we put time and development into it. That's why you hear me talk a lot about how we have to become the person. We have to become, that seed that wants to grow. We can't just look at things as a toolbox. We have to become the change. We have to become the person. We have to become the leader. We have to become the entrepreneur. We have to become the friend. We have to become the spouse. We have to become, the professional, whatever that thing is. When you become it, then you'll know and you'll feel that I have the worth, the ability to make this decision, and your confidence will be higher. So we want to be careful about all of these things that surround us when we're trying to make a decision. All right. Now, I want to talk to you about a process that we go through, and it's very important because we struggle with this when we're dealing with making decisions. Now, I want to explain to you kind of how this flows. So most of the time, we have a choice in front of us, right? So a choice is not a decision. I can make a choice. I just chose between two options, right? A decision has something more permanent in it. It's something that I've done in my heart. Like, I'm really deciding to do this. And once I've made a decision, I'm sticking with it. Choices sometimes kind of come and go. That's why people just kind of, do you want iPhone or Android? You might get iPhone this time, get Android next time, right? And you might switch up between Apple and Microsoft. Choices, right? Decisions have this different feeling with it. Like, I made a decision that I'm going to launch this business. I made a decision I'm going to improve my health. I made a decision that I'm going to lose weight. I made a decision I'm going to improve my blood pressure. I made a decision I'm going to communicate better. I made a decision to join a program that can help elevate me in my business. I made a decision that I'm going to increase my education because I want to be able to do better on this job. Decision, decision, decision. See, this is what we're going through. So there's a choice in front of us of whether or not we're going to make a decision, right? So you do have a choice of whether or not you're going to make a decision, right? So we have that choice. So then we move from choice to consider. So we start considering, right? Here's where the thinking begins, right? I always draw me a little brain here, right? And we got the left and right side, and we start to think, right? This is always a challenge, right? So we start to think, right? So this is where the thinking begins to come in. The next thing is, after we consider, most of us, we then have a conflict. Right? So we have a conflict that starts to come up in our mind. Now, this conflict is very serious. It's very serious because what tends to happen, right? Let's say, get us an individual here. You all know I'm always drawing a little something. So here we begin. Here I am, right? And there is a fact over here, right? And the box I drew around that fact is my perception of the fact. Very important, right? This has to do with my focus on the fact. So whenever I hear a fact, right, there could be a real fact, but what do I focus on? So it could be a fact that it costs me a certain amount of money to buy a vehicle. And I can focus on how I can afford it, or I can focus on how can I afford it, right? It all depends. What is my focus? So my perception of the fact is very important because it is my perception of the fact, right, that causes me to create a belief about that fact, okay? And this is what goes on in this conflict that we're in. So I have a perception of that fact, then I start to get, a belief, right? And this belief begins to cause me to either feel an emotion of anticipation or anxiety. Okay? So one of these is going to be the case. I want to feel anticipation or anxiety. Now, this is really critical, right? Because the fact is the fact. And this is a challenge we deal with. So the fact is something happened in your life. The fact is your car broke down. The fact is, you have to spend $50,000 to go back to school if you want to go. That's the price. That's the fact. But what you focus on, right, creates the belief, and that is where we end up either making good decisions or bad decisions, is how our tendency to focus a certain way. Some of us tend to focus in a way that creates anticipation because we think about the opportunity that can come from the thing, no matter what it is, right? Some of us focus on what we feel is going to go wrong, so we feel anxiety, right? And this anxiety is really dangerous, right? Because, now let me take a minute real quick. Let me focus on this real quick. So there's a difference between fear and anxiety, right? It's a difference between the two. So fear is to have caution about a real and present danger. That's fear. So if I was on top of a building and someone was chasing me, and the only way to get away from them was to jump over this open area where I could die if I fall into another building, I had to jump across, and I felt fear, right? Well, that's caution about a real and present danger. If someone was chasing me and they had something that could hurt me and they had bad intentions to hurt me and I felt fear, well, there's a real present danger, right? Anxiety, right, is different because this is me wasting energy on an outcome I feel, double underline that, right, is most likely to happen. And let me add this, according to me. Double underline that again. Now, I want you to understand these two definitions. This is critical. So because of what we focus on about the fact isn't the issue. It's the way you focus on that fact. And the way you focus on that fact will give you a belief, and that belief in your mind creates a feeling of, I anticipate something good will come out of this, or I anticipate, or I have anxiety, right? And I begin to waste my energy, right? It's not even a real fear. It's not even a present danger. It's a story I'm telling myself. It's something I've created in my own mind, right? So if I've created something in my mind and I keep telling myself this, then I begin to paralyze myself about an outcome that is not even real, but it's what I feel is most likely to happen. So I'm not going to move forward in my business. I'm not going to invest in my business. I'm not going to take that journey in my career. I'm not going to take those steps toward improving my health because most likely I won't finish the health program anyway. Anxiety, right? So I end up indecisive because I know I need to do it, but I probably won't. And I end up in this tug of war within myself because of my perception of the fact, creating a belief that makes me feel anxiety, right? And that is what, see, the thing about anxiety that's an interesting thing is, let's look at this for a minute. I'm going to get back to what I was talking about in just a minute. But here's a fact for you. No one can tell the future, right? So whatever you believe about the future is a story you tell yourself. And I'm going to put this for myself. Wow. Right? So this is a wow moment. Everything we feel believe about the future is a story we tell ourselves. And you better make sure that that story that you tell yourself is based on truth, right? So sometimes there are some things, just like, I was coming here, I wanted to get on this live a little bit earlier. And I had a belief and anticipation that I could get here at a certain time because of the normal journey that I drive to get here. But the truth was there was an accident on the freeway and I had to change and accept that I wasn't going to be able to get here based on what I was expecting to be here by because I couldn't control the future. And I don't care what's in your mind about the future, right? You cannot control that future. So whatever you believe about why you can't have a relationship with that person, about why you can't change, about why you can't be successful in your business, about why you can't afford that thing you need to invest in, about why you feel you can't make your health better, why you will always be who you always are, your perception of people and how they think about you, everything that you think about the future is a story you are telling yourself. So what are you telling yourself? What are you saying to yourself? What are you doing to yourself, right? Indecisiveness, self-inflicted injury because of how I'm thinking, right? And that's why when we think about the future, we want to understand the distinction between, guess I'm talking about a lot of things here today, the distinction between true and truth, right? True and truth are not the same. True can change. Truth can't change, right? What do I mean by that? It's true that I'm on YouTube right now, but in a little while from now, that won't be true anymore, right? That's going to change, right? It's true that it's daytime where we're at right now. Later tonight, that won't be true anymore, right? So true changes because it moves with what's happening, right? Not that true isn't important. We should be true, but true changes, right? So There was a time in our history where it was true that not everybody could drink at the same water fountain or eat at the same lunch counter. But thank goodness what's true changed, right? All right, but truth is something that can't change. The sun is going to come up every day. That's the truth, right? That is the truth. You cannot change that, right? Gravity is truth. And for those of you with a biblical background, I believe that there's truth in the earth today. I believe in the scriptures. I believe in the word of God. Not to get into a religious discussion here today, but I believe that there is a such thing as truth. If there is no truth, then we don't have anything to base anything on. So there has to be truth, all right? But there are a lot of things in your life that are not truth. They're only things that you have told yourself is true, right? You told yourself that is true. And this is why you have begun to create an indecisive climate in your mind, right? This is the problem. All right, let's go back. So here we are. Conflict. Because of that conflict, we compromise, right? We know that there's something that can really help us. We know that there's something I need to do. I need to take action. We know that's something, that opportunity that's in front of us. We know that that opportunity is greater for us. It will make us better, cause us to be better. We know that we need to get around that individual that can cause us to grow. We know that where we're at is not good enough and we need to do something to change our situation. But instead, we compromise, right? We compromise. Why? Listening to our own story. From that compromise, it leads to concession. Concession, bottom line, means, put this in red, to give up, right? To give up, right? This is the problem, right? And we go through this conflict, right? And a lot of times we'll circle between consider and conflict, right, for a while. That's where the indecisive comes in. And most of the time, we're too indecisive, we end up compromising and we end up conceding to our own thought, right? So this is why we have to understand how deadly this is. This is stopping your progress. This is stopping your success. This is stopping your ability to be as great as possible. This is stopping you from growing as an entrepreneur because you keep it staying in this conflict of consider and conflict, consider and conflict. Then you compromise, then you concede, and you stay right where you are, right? With that dream that never becomes a reality, that action that never becomes an action, that something that never becomes something, it begins to become a way of life where you never are getting where you want to go. So we have to learn to make a change so that we can be different, right? So we can have different things. We can be in a different way, right? So this is, again, we have to change our focus. We have to understand what's going on. And we understand what's going on, then we can actually begin to have a different outcome. All right. So now, let me leave you with something. Here's what we need to do. You want to determine your options, right? So you got to determine your options, right? Determine your options. What are my options? We got to know what they are before I can decide, right? Then we have to evaluate which option seems best. We have to do that. We got to evaluate the option, got to see which one seems best to us, right? You can't just go doing stuff, right? I'm not telling you to just run with everything that comes up, to just do with everything, no matter what happens, just do it. So you have to evaluate which option seems best, all right? Then choose the best option, right? We want to choose the best option, right? You have to, here's where we're making a decision. I'm choosing to decide, right? The best option. Then investigate the results. Because you can't tell the future. So what do? You investigate the results that came from that decision. So you choose, you said, I choose, and I've decided, right, on that best option. Now I investigate the results. Then direct your focus on what's working, right? So every decision you make, there's something that worked, because either it worked or it worked on you. I'm going to say that again. It always worked, because either it worked or it worked on you. So direct your focus on what's working, right? So I forget who was it? I don't know if it was Einstein or Alexander. No, might have been, I forget which the one that created the light bulb, said how many hundreds of times that he messed up. And he said, no, I didn't mess up. I just learned 100 ways of how not to do this until I learned how to do it, right? It's all how you look at it, right? How you focus. Yeah, I think it is Edison. Thank you. Yeah, Thomas Edison. I learned, all of these ways how not to do it, right? So this is what we're talking about. And then eliminate what's not working. So when you look at things this way, you won't be afraid to take action on things, because you realize that although I made a decision, that decision is alive. And I can determine the best option. I can evaluate which option seems best to me and then choose the best option. Stop being indecisive and going back and forth. I'm going to choose the best option that I see, right? Based on the information I have, I'm going to focus on creating anticipation instead of anxiety. I'm going to have a mindset that looks for the good of what can happen, and I'm going to just investigate the results. And from that, I'm going to direct my focus on what is working. I'm going to eliminate the things that don't, and I'm going to keep on moving in my life. But I won't stand still. I won't be stagnant. I won't keep saying another day, another time. I won't let it be said that I didn't try, right? And this, as you can see, spells decide, right? And that is what we want to do. We want to be able to decide. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, share, comment, come back to this video. Tell me, I always look at the comments. So when you're live, I can see your comments now, but they go away when the live is over. But I'd love for you to come back and tell me what you got out of this, because I love reading the comments to know if you're getting a lot out of this content. I hope that you will fight against indecisiveness and be someone that is clear and is certain about the things that you do. Don't waste time on the stories that you tell yourself that are not based on something that is even true, something that you even know. Always think deeply about if I'm putting too much time into something that I can't even, make true, something that I can't even change, something that I can't even, control. And I'm going to instead make a decision and make a commitment to myself to go in the direction that I want to go with my life, with my career, with my business, and the consequences that come from that. I'm willing to accept them, learn from them, and make even better decisions based on what I've learned. I am Michael E. Parker, and this is You Are a CEO. Make sure you keep running the business of you and live every day like your life depends on it, because it does. I'll see you next time.